Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends, wherever you are. I want to start today by sharing something truly remarkable, something that caught so many by surprise. You see, Mani, a leader who had campaigned with a message of strong opposition, someone some might have even called the worst nightmare for President Trump, was suddenly walking through the front doors of the White House. And it wasn't for a fight. No, it was for a meeting, a wonderfully friendly one. The reaction? A sense of shock, perhaps a bit of confusion, with headlines scrambling to make sense of it all. Some might have called it a backtrack, others a clever strategy, and still others may have wondered if we were watching the very beginning of the biggest political recalibration in New York City in decades. But here's the beautiful truth that truly stood out to me. The atmosphere, the very tone inside that historic Oval Office, was so wonderfully different from the fiery words we often hear from the campaign trail. Instead, it was almost warm, cooperative, even optimistic. And that, my friends, leads us to a powerful question. Why would two leaders who seemed destined to clash suddenly sit down, smile, shake hands, and talk about vital issues like affordability, safety, and the future of America's biggest city? Today, I, Joel Osteen, as a television preacher and businessman, want to share with you exactly what transpired behind those closed doors, what reporters observed, what cameras captured, what both men said afterward, and why the political landscape may have shifted more in one afternoon than most expected in an entire year. Now, to understand why this meeting mattered so much, we need to rewind just a bit. You see, the man sitting across from President Trump in that historic office wasn't just any mayor-elect. He was someone who had spent months on the campaign trail using very strong language, calling the Trump administration everything from a nightmare to a fascist regime. Powerful words, words that energized a progressive base in New York City and helped propel him to victory. But once the excitement of victory settled, once the true call of leadership and governance became clear, something truly shifted. A spirit of pragmatism, of putting people first, began to emerge. Within days of winning, Zoran Mamani, who had promised to relentlessly pursue every avenue to oppose Trump, picked up the phone and requested a meeting at the White House. Not to protest, not to grandstand, but to talk, to find common ground, to work together on issues that matter to millions of New Yorkers. Now, if you're anything like me, your mind might instantly ask, what happened here? What caused such a dramatic shift between Election Day and that phone call? And more importantly, what does it tell us about the profound difference between campaigning and truly governing? Because here's a powerful truth. When we're pursuing a goal, we can often speak with great boldness. We can make sweeping declarations. We can draw sharp lines in the sand and paint an opponent as the villain in a story where we are the hero. That's a part of the political journey. That's how we rally people, how we generate excitement, how we win votes. But once you actually win, once you're the one sitting in the chair staring at budgets and federal funding reports and legal constraints, that's when a new level of wisdom and humility often takes root. And that's a good thing, my friends. Reality, in its gentle yet firm way, has a way of humbling even the most passionate idealists, guiding them toward effective action. Mamani, I believe, learned this profound lesson with incredible speed because the promises he made on the campaign trail weren't small. They were massive, truly transformational, the kind of proposals that sound incredible in a speech but require billions of dollars in immense political capital to actually bring to fruition. Let me walk you through what he promised because it's important context for understanding why that White House meeting became not just smart, but absolutely necessary. First, free buses, not just reduced fares or discounted passes, but completely free public transit across one of the largest and most expensive transit systems in the world. The estimated cost? Somewhere in the range of several $100 million annual, funded by. Well, that part was always a bit fuzzy. Second, free childcare, universal, citywide childcare for families who need it. A noble goal, no question. But again, the price tag would run into the billions, and the infrastructure required to deliver it doesn't just appear overnight. Third, and perhaps most controversial, freezing rent for over 2 million rent-stabilized apartments across the city on day one. No increases, no adjustments for inflation or rising costs, just a hard freeze. Landlords would still have to pay property taxes, maintenance, insurance, utilities, all of which continue to rise, but their rental income would stay locked in place. Now, we all understand, my friends, that when expenses rise and income remains stagnant, It creates incredible pressure. Properties can suffer, vital investments might be delayed, and ultimately, the very quality of our communities can be impacted. But Mamani didn't stop there. He also proposed city-built housing, essentially having New York City itself become a developer and landlord, and even city-run grocery stores to combat what he called food deserts in underserved neighborhoods. Again, ambitious, again, expensive, and again, requiring infrastructure, staff, regulatory approval, and funding sources that don't yet exist. So how was he planning to pay for all of this? Taxes. Specifically raising corporate taxes and imposing higher income taxes on millionaires and high earners. He argued that wealthier neighborhoods, and yes, he did describe them in terms that sounded race-based, though he later clarified he meant it geographically, should shoulder more of the burden to fund services for lower-income communities. Now here's where the plan hit its first major roadblock. New York City can't just raise state taxes on its own. That power belongs to the governor and the state legislature. And Governor Kathy Hochul made it very clear, very quickly, that she wasn't on board. No new taxes, not for this, not now. Suddenly, the path to funding those vital initiatives seemed to vanish. Poof, gone. And without it, every one of those big promises became just that, promises. Words on a website, applause lines for a campaign rally. But the problem didn't end there. Because as Mamani's team started digging into the numbers, they realized something else. New York City receives tens of billions of dollars in federal funding every year. Funding for infrastructure, for housing programs, for public safety, for education. And a significant portion of that funding flows through or is influenced by the White House. If Mamani came into office guns blazing, treating Trump as an enemy, publicly opposing every federal initiative, creating friction at every turn, well, there was a very real risk that some of that funding could slow down or get redirected or simply not get renewed. And in a great city like New York, already navigating its financial responsibilities, even a slight reduction in federal support could present significant challenges for its citizens. So Mamani found himself at a crossroads. He had won with a powerful message of opposition, but he quickly realized that truly serving the people meant finding a different path, a path of cooperation, not conflict. He understood that being perceived as an adversary might hinder his ability to govern effectively. It might cost New York billions. It might make it impossible to deliver on any of his promises, even the scaled-back ones. That's when the pivot happened. Quietly at first, wisdom began to speak. Advisors shared insights on pragmatism. Experienced political voices reminded him that effective action often requires more than just words, but also collaboration. Fiscal experts presented the realities, the pathways, and the opportunities. And so, the phone call was made, the meeting was requested, and President Trump, in a powerful display of leadership, extended an open hand and said yes to the meeting. Now, my friends, take a moment to imagine the energy in that room. Two men who had previously expressed strong disagreements, now sitting face to face in one of the most significant rooms in the world, with the eyes of the nation upon them. It's a powerful image of potential. Cameras rolling, reporters watching, both knowing that what happened next would define not just their working relationship, but possibly the future of New York City itself. And what unfolded next was truly a testament to the power of open hearts and minds. Instead of tension, there was a genuine warmth. Instead of confrontation, a spirit of cooperation emerged. President Trump opened by congratulating Mamani on his victory, calling his campaign incredible, and saying he'd beaten some very smart, very tough opponents. He praised Mamani's ability to connect with voters, to run a disciplined race, to win decisively. And then he said something that truly resonated. He said, "There's no difference in party. There's no difference in anything. We're going to be helping him to make everybody's dream come true, a strong and very safe New York." Think about that, my friends. The President of the United States, a Republican, sitting alongside a Democratic Socialist mayor-elect from New York City, and publicly committing to help him succeed. Not to undermine, not to mock, not to dismiss, but to help. That's a powerful message of unity and shared purpose. Now, some might ask, was it truly genuine? Was it strategic? Perhaps a bit of both, but here's the undeniable truth. It worked. It created a pathway for progress. The optics were positive, the tone was constructive, and for a few minutes it felt like maybe, just maybe, two people who disagree on a lot could still find a way to work together on the things that matter most. Mamani, for his part, played it smart and with great maturity. He didn't backtrack entirely. He didn't disavow his campaign promises, but he did something more subtle and, frankly, more mature. He acknowledged that he and the president have many disagreements, but he also emphasized that his job is to serve New Yorkers, all of them, and that means pursuing every opportunity, every meeting, every conversation that could lead to better outcomes for the city. He talked about affordability, about the cost of living crisis, about how 1 in 4 New Yorkers live in poverty, and how his administration's focus would be on lifting people out of struggle and giving them a city they can actually afford to live in, not just survive in. And here's the key. He framed working with Trump not as betrayal, but as responsibility, as part of the job, as what a mayor is truly called to do. The reporters, of course, weren't going to let him off that easy. One asked him point blank, "Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?" He shows. Because remember, Mamani had strongly implied exactly that during the campaign. He'd used language that left very little room for interpretation. When asked directly, Mamani paused, and with a slight, almost knowing smile, he conceded that sometimes, in the moment, a simple "okay" is perhaps easier than explaining it. The room shared a light moment, and in that exchange, we saw a leader choosing forward movement over past rhetoric. It wasn't about whether he'd changed his core beliefs overnight, but about understanding that to move forward, to build, to achieve for the people, sometimes we have to set aside yesterday's battles and focus on today's opportunities. Was it politically smart? Absolutely. Was it a powerful moment of turning the page? I believe so, but the tension didn't completely disappear, because while Trump and Mamani found common ground on affordability, on housing development, on cutting bureaucratic red tape that slows down construction projects, there were still some very real, very deep disagreements lurking just beneath the surface. Public safety, for one. Mamani has been vocal about his belief that the NYPD's Strategic Response Group, essentially the city's specialized rapid response unit for civil disorder, protests, and large-scale emergencies, should not be deployed to manage protests. He argues it infringes on First Amendment rights and intimidates peaceful demonstrators. Trump, on the other hand, sees public safety as non-negotiable. He made it clear during the meeting, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing, with anything else, it's not going to be a success. And here's where things get tricky for Mamani. Because while he can talk about reform and oversight and protecting civil liberties, all valid concerns, he also has to govern a city where people genuinely worry about crime, where subway riders feel unsafe, where businesses are still recovering from years of instability, where the perception of disorder, whether accurate or not, drives people and investment away. During one interview, Mamani was asked what he would do if thousands of police officers resigned in protest on his first day in office. Some estimates suggest that the number could be as high as several thousand officers walking off the job if they felt unsupported or undermined by the new administration. His response? He said he didn't see that happening, that it was hypothetical, that people were committed to the city and wouldn't abandon it. Which, okay, fair enough. But the follow-up question was obvious. But if it did happen, what's your plan? And he didn't really have one, or at least he didn't articulate one. He just reiterated that he didn't think it would happen. Now, my friends, as a businessman and someone who believes in planning for a positive future, I believe in the power of hope. But wise leaders also understand the importance of preparation. While optimism is a powerful force, it's also true that we need to have clear pathways and solutions for every possibility. And in that moment, while Mamani showed great faith, the specific plan wasn't clearly articulated. Trump, by contrast, was very clear. He wants to see more police on the streets. He wants to see stronger enforcement. He wants to see criminals, especially violent criminals, especially those in the country illegally, removed and prosecuted. And he made it clear that federal support would flow toward mayors who share that priority. So here's where we are. Mamani walked into that meeting needing something: federal cooperation, funding, goodwill, a path forward that didn't involve constant conflict, and Trump gave it to him, at least publicly. But in exchange, Mamani had to soften his tone, had to show he was willing to work within the system, had to prove he could be a partner, not just a protest voice. And from Trump's perspective, this was a win too, because it let him project exactly the image he wants heading into the next phase of his presidency. Someone who demonstrated a willingness to work with anyone across any perceived divide, as long as they were focused on solutions. Someone who chose not to dwell on past grievances, but to look forward with an eye toward positive results. Whether that image matches reality is a separate question. But politically, optically, strategically, this meeting was a masterclass in how both sides can walk away claiming victory. And yet, the sharpest confrontation of the entire press conference wasn't about police or protesters. It was about taxes, specifically property taxes. And the question came from a reporter who didn't mince words. He asked Mamani directly, "You talked during the campaign about shifting the property tax burden from minority communities to white-based communities. Are you continuing that race-based taxation policy?" Mamani's face tightened. He shook his head. He clarified firmly that he was talking about neighborhoods, not races, that the issue was equity in how properties are assessed and taxed, and that some areas had been unfairly overburdened while others had been underassessed for years. He insisted it was about fairness, not racial targeting. But here's the problem. Words matter. And during the campaign, Mamani had indeed used language that described wealthier, whiter neighborhoods as needing to pay more to support poorer, browner neighborhoods. Whether he intended it that way or not, that's how it was heard. That's how it was reported. And now in the Oval Office, he was presented with the consequences of that framing. This moment, my friends, reminds us of the profound power of our words and how important it is to communicate our intentions with absolute clarity, ensuring our message of fairness resonates exactly as we intend. Trump, to his credit, or perhaps to maximize the awareness, stayed silent during that exchange. He let Mamani address the challenge. He let the moment breathe, and the clip predictably went viral. Because here's the thing about governing in 2025. Every word you say is recorded, clipped, shared, and analyzed 1,000 different ways. You can't revisit rhetoric from months ago and pretend it doesn't exist. The internet has a long memory, and voters, especially older voters, who've seen politicians flip-flop for decades, notice these contradictions. But here's what I found truly inspiring and fascinating, my friends. Despite those moments of candid discussion, despite the obvious differences in approach, something truly beautiful emerged from that meeting, something many didn't expect, and perhaps the media struggled to fully grasp. Genuine points of agreement, a common vision for a better future, not just polite nodding, not just vague platitudes about working together. Actual substantive areas where Trump and Mamani found themselves on surprisingly similar ground. Take housing, for example. Both men agreed that New York City desperately needs more housing supply, that the permitting process is a bureaucratic nightmare, that it takes years, sometimes nearly a decade, to get approval for projects that should take months, that environmental reviews, community board meetings, and layers upon layers of regulation have created a system where building anything has become almost impossible. Mamani wants to fix this because he believes more housing supply will lower rents and make the city affordable again. Trump wants to fix it because he's a developer at heart and because he knows that economic growth requires construction, jobs, and investment. Different motivations, same powerful conclusion. They also agreed on food prices. During the meeting, Trump talked about how Thanksgiving costs had dropped by about 20 to 25% compared to the previous year, citing grocery chains reporting lower prices on holiday staples. Mamani nodded along, acknowledging that the cost of living crisis is real and that working families need relief wherever they can get it. And then there was something that honestly surprised me: foreign policy. Specifically ending what Mamani called forever wars. During the press conference, he mentioned speaking to voters in his district who supported Trump for exactly two reasons. First, they wanted an end to endless military conflicts abroad. Second, they wanted to stop sending taxpayer dollars to fund what they saw as human rights violations overseas. Now, those are traditionally progressive talking points: anti-war, anti-interventionist, skeptical of military spending. But there are also positions Trump has campaigned on repeatedly. America first means not being the world's policeman. It means bringing troops home. It means questioning why we're spending billions abroad when there are problems at home that need solving. So in that room, for that moment, a Democratic Socialist mayor-elect and a populist Republican president found themselves agreeing on foreign policy. Not on everything, obviously, but on enough that it was truly notable. President Trump even made a lighthearted remark, or perhaps a serious observation, and with him it's often hard to distinguish, that years ago many supporters of Senator Bernie Sanders found common ground with him on issues like trade deals, and a focus on domestic prosperity. It reminds us that across the spectrum, many people share similar aspirations for their nation. Different solutions, sure, but similar frustrations, similar voters, and maybe, just maybe, similar instincts about what needs to be made right in the system. Now, does this mean Trump and Mamani are secretly best friends? Does it mean all their differences vanished in a puff of smoke? Of course not. But it reveals a powerful truth, a lesson we all need to remember. When leaders are willing to genuinely sit down, to look beyond the headlines and the social media chatter, they can often discover more shared ground, more common purpose than anyone might have imagined. And that, my friends, is truly encouraging. Because in our current political climate, we're so used to treating every disagreement as a total war, every policy difference as a moral catastrophe, every opponent as an enemy who must be destroyed. But the beautiful truth is, most people, even people who disagree strongly, deeply desire similar things: safety, affordability, opportunity, a chance for their kids to do better than they did. These are universal aspirations. The question then becomes, are we willing to empower our leaders to work together to achieve these vital goals? Or will we allow divisions to prevent us from reaching our highest potential? In this case, at least for now, cooperation won, and the public noticed. The media reaction was swift and predictable. Headlines range from Mamani backtracks on Trump confrontation, to progressive mayor-elect makes peace with president, to did Zoran just sell out? Political commentators were divided. Some praised Mamani for being pragmatic, for putting New Yorkers ahead of ideology, for recognizing that effective governance requires working with people you don't always agree with. Others accused him of betraying his base, of abandoning his principles, of caving to pressure before he'd even taken office. One analyst put it this way: the question isn't whether Mamani changed his tune, he certainly adjusted his approach. And the more profound question, I believe, is whether a true leader, faced with such realities, has any other choice but to adapt and seek common ground. I think that's a very insightful perspective. Some of Mamani's progressive supporters were clearly frustrated. They had elected him to fight, not to compromise. They'd expected resistance, not collaboration. Social media lit up with criticism from the left, accusing him of going soft, of getting co-opted by the establishment, of losing his nerve. But here's what I think those critics are missing, my friends. Fighting simply for the sake of fighting rarely brings positive change. Resistance, when it's not guided by a clear vision and a plan for progress, can sometimes become just noise. And if Mamani had walked into that meeting, called Trump a fascist to his face, stormed out, and declared war on the White House, what would he have accomplished? A viral moment, sure. A few days of praise from the most partisan corners of the internet. And then what? Then he would face immense hurdles, leading a city without crucial federal support, without the goodwill needed to negotiate effectively, to find solutions. He could have found himself isolated, limited in his ability to deliver on his commitments. So yes, there were moments that might have seemed a little uncomfortable, a little awkward, but in the long run, choosing to keep that door open, choosing cooperation, might just be the wisest and most beneficial path Mamani could have taken for New York City. Now let's talk about what all this actually means for New Yorkers, because at the end of the day, politics is just a means to an end. What truly matters, my friends, is whether we see positive transformation in people's lives. If this new relationship between Mamani and Trump holds, if they actually follow through on the things they discussed, New Yorkers could see some real benefits. More federal funding for infrastructure projects, support for housing development, cooperation on public safety initiatives, streamlined approvals for construction, lower barriers to economic growth. Those aren't abstract policy points. They translate into bonds, into safer streets, into more affordable homes, into a city that works better for everyone. On the other hand, there are risks. If Mamani softens too much, if he compromises away the core promises that got him elected, he could lose the trust of the very people who put him in office. Many of his supporters elected him to be bold, to inspire transformative change, to challenge the status quo with passion and conviction. So he's navigating a delicate balance. He needs to cooperate enough to govern effectively, but resist enough to maintain his identity and his mandate. That's not easy. And history, my friends, offers many examples of leaders who, in their journey, either compromised too much and lost their distinctive voice, or became so unyielding they struggled to achieve their goals. It's a testament to the challenge of true leadership. The next few months will tell us which side Mamani lands on. But for now, at least, he's threading the needle. And there's a bigger story here too, because this meeting wasn't just about New York City. It was about a powerful pattern that's emerging across the country. Leaders in our cities and states are realizing that some long-held approaches, particularly on issues like public safety, managing crime, and fiscal responsibility, need a fresh perspective. People are seeking stability. They're looking for solutions to rising prices. They're seeking policies that not only sound compassionate, but also deliver clear, positive results and bring peace to our communities. Mamani's pivot is part of that broader shift, and Trump knows it. He's using meetings like this to position himself as the adult in the room, the deal maker, the guy who's willing to work with anyone, even his critics, as long as they're serious about solving problems. Is it truly genuine? Perhaps. Is it also a powerful display of political wisdom? Absolutely. And sometimes those two can beautifully align for the greater good. Because every time Trump sits down with a Democrat and they shake hands and smile and talk about cooperation, it begins to shift perceptions, to show a willingness to engage, to be effective. And for others, it presents a choice. Will they choose the path of cooperation? Or will they allow perceived divisions to hinder progress? It's a powerful challenge to embrace unity. There's no easy answer, but the fact that the question is even being asked shows how much the political landscape has shifted. So where does all this leave us? Well, Zoran Mamani walked into his mayoral race as a firebrand. He spoke of transformative change, energizing many who felt unheard. He won decisively, carrying a clear mandate. But then, my friends, the realities of governance, the complexities of funding, the intricate needs of a great city became clear. And in that moment, the choice wasn't just about bold declarations, but about finding the most effective path forward for the people. Mamani made a courageous choice for cooperation. Perhaps it was pragmatic, perhaps strategic, but it was a choice that gave himself, and more importantly, New York City, a beautiful fighting chance for a brighter tomorrow. Trump, for his part, took the meeting seriously. He could have been dismissive, condescending, petty. He could have used the opportunity to humiliate a political opponent. Instead, he was gracious, complimentary, constructive. Whether this stemmed from personal growth, strategic thinking, or simply a desire to find common ground, I couldn't tell you the exact motivation. But what I can tell you is this: it worked. The result was a meeting that almost no one predicted and that very few people know quite what to make of. A progressive mayor-elect and a populist president sitting together, finding common ground and promising to work together for the good of America's largest city. Will it last? Will they actually follow through? Or will old tensions resurface the moment the cameras stop rolling and the real negotiations begin? Time will tell. But for one afternoon in November 2025, inside the Oval Office, something unexpected happened. Two leaders who were supposed to be enemies acted like partners. Two men who had spent months attacking each other found reasons to cooperate. And for a few hours at least, it felt like maybe, just maybe, politics doesn't always have to be war. Whether that feeling survives the realities of governance remains to be seen, but I'll be watching, and I hope you will too. Well, my friends, I hope this perspective has brought you some encouragement today. What a powerful reminder that even in our greatest challenges, there's always an opportunity for breakthrough. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this truly unexpected turn of events. Do you believe this meeting marks a real turning point for New York? A step towards greater unity? Or was it perhaps more about political strategy? Share your insights in the comments below. I always